Evening, everybody. Welcome to Defcon 2 Aftermath. We're taking a look at more defenders, more controllers, trying to figure out which of these support archetypes is the better member for your team, the one that's going to help you win the day. And in our first round here in Defcon 2, Cold Domination, we kicked it up a notch. We didn't do any just silly little 54 times 8 papers and radio missions. No, no, no. We went ahead and jumped into the Architect Entertainment Building to run some 801 missions. Hey, what are the 801 missions? This is a series of customized missions, primarily by a user. I believe the name is Linnea, and they made some incarnate level challenges, all customized mobs with debuffs and controls and heavy duty damage. Because I wanted to push the envelope this time around, because in the original DEFCON 5 series, it was really close, and I don't know if the challenges were hard enough to really see the true differences, or at least to see differences that would matter perhaps more to defenders that are renowned for their superior buff numbers or superior debuff numbers. And I'm not sure the 54 times 8 was challenging enough to showcase that. And perhaps that's why the controllers came out on top in that first set of 5v5. So here we are. Shimr, Cold Domination, ran some AE missions. Let's go ahead and take a look at what we found out in our analysis of our good friend Shimr here. Let me pull up this window for us. All right, so here's Shimr. She was Ice Control, Cold Domination, Ice Mastery, and the missions we ran were four of them. Mission one, two, three, and four. Four is where the test ended after 11 minutes. But you can see we spent about 30 minutes in the previous three missions, and the 801 series has a decimal number that progressively goes up from 0 to 9 and then begins alphabetically going from A to F. And as you move up through the numbers and the letters, they get progressively more challenging. So the point two is the easiest one, and that falls into what I'm calling a tier one mission, which is the first 801 ones through 801 threes. At least in my limited experience so far, those missions all have what I would consider to be about the same level of difficulty. So I do a random roll, and that was the mission we came up with, and it took us 30 minutes. We were successful there and jumped into tier two, which would be 804s, 5s, and 6s, I believe, or 804s and 5s. And then we got 801-4 on that one. And then tier 3 or mission 3 was the 801-6 series, and we got 801-6 warehouse. And then we got to tier 4, which is 7, 8, 9 801s. And we got the lucky draw of 801-9. And then, had we progressed past that, we get into tier 5, which is then the A, B, C, D, E, F range. We didn't make it that far, but there is the missions we actually took on. And if you haven't run any of these missions, they are chock full of elite bosses, custom, power combinations, a lot of debuffing, controlling, a lot of damage incoming. So you can't just walk in there with any old build and expect to survive very long. You have to be pretty tricked out, I would say, to have a good chance of surviving, especially considering we're not going in there with a full team. It's my controller, my defender, with four other teammates. And in this case, we had a Veets, a Widow by the name of Veil Widow. We had two tankers, Outshined in Imhotep, and then we had a blaster by the name of Lawrence. And we were in there for a total of, I think it was actually only 100 minutes, not 102, because a couple minutes didn't count near the end, which you'll see why. And we ended this experiment because the test failed. The mission ended because we hit one of our stop conditions, which is 4 out of 5 teammates down and out at the same time. And there was also a disqualification in there because one of the players exited the map to go to the hospital, which is a no-no. You must use and only you can't leave, and you have to use anything that's on you. You can't go to your email. You can't go out hospital, grab some stuff, come back in. It's just whatever you brought with you at the time is what you get. And so from those four missions, I recorded the stats using the /log chat command. I ran those stats through Sithlin's DPS tool, which I've talked about in previous episodes of my other series I've been running. Go check out my channel, the various playlists like Defcon and the support stalkers, etc. And then what I'm going to do, or what I had then done, is taken that data, crunched it, run it through Excel into graphs, tables, and I'm going to present that to you all now. So you're going to be putting on your math caps today, breaking out your rulers, your calculators, your notebooks, pencil, no pen, and we're going to be talking about rates, which is the stat per minute calculations. We're going to be talking about correlations. We're going to be looking at side by side comparisons with bar graphs and standard error bars. And we're going to be looking at composites and box-and-whisker distributions. And I've gone through all the mathy how to's again in some older vids. So go check out my original DEFCON series where I describe and discuss the math behind all these. I don't want to spend too much time on that now, so I'll only cover it as needed as I'm explaining stuff. But that is pretty much what's going on. And so then what we're going to do at this point is get into the main stats. Now, the one area I do want to point out before we go much further is, hey, what statistics or what stats, what numbers am I looking at? So when you go ahead and do your log chat from the game, so you do type /log chat, and that records these text files, txt files, and those go into Sithlin's tool. And then what I then am specifically looking at, and what I did originally with the DEFCON 5 series, is I'm looking at a mix of offense and defense stats. Now, the stats that I'm recording are just my characters. I don't have the stats from everybody else. I have one other player's stats. I'm not sure what I can do with them just yet, given that I probably would need the entire team set of stats to really make sense of it, or I would need to have the same teammate each time and see what effect pairing up with different of my characters is. But that's not the way I've set up the actual test. I'm not even sure that's going to be useful information. But anyway, you run this through Sithlin's tool, and it gives you a bunch of different outputs. So I'm going to be mainly looking at damage out. So what was my damage output? That's one of my main stats. I'm going to be looking at my damage in. How much damage did I take? And both of these actually, here's the cool thing that you're going to see this time around that you wouldn't have seen in the original DEFCON series is Sithlin's tool makes it real easy to differentiate between the characters' damage out and in and any pets you may have. So that was much more easily determined using Sithlin's tool. But those are a couple of my main, offense, defensive stuff. I'm also going to be looking at defeats. How many times did my character die? I'm going to be looking at teammate defeats. How many times did my teammates die? And of course, I want to see how many times the foes were defeated. So those are my main original stats, but Sithlin's tool lets you do a lot more now. I also have data on hits. So how many times I was hit or missed. I also have data on controls, how many times I was able to hold somebody, sleep somebody, knock them down, etc. There are even stats on the number of buffs, how many times you used a specific buff or debuff power. You got heals in there. You've got endurance, draining or recovery, that kind of stuff. So there's all kinds of different numbers. And so I'm bringing in a lot of this new stuff. So if you've seen my DEFCON 5 series and we're like, wow, that's a lot of data, you're going to see even more this go around. So with that all said, let's get into what was discovered and what these numbers mean, if anything. All right, so here's the first data set we're going to take a look at, and that's survivability. And this is simply my personal defeats. So you can see here that I had a total of 5 defeats over the 4 missions, and it was pretty stable 0, 1, 2, 2. Remember that the difficulty is ramping up as you go down the mission list, so it's getting harder and harder. So the fact that I'm not racking up 20 deaths by the time tier 4 rolls around is showing a pretty stable character regardless of what challenges that she's facing. You'll also see that the time for least the first 3 missions was consistent. So very consistent defeats, very consistent time. The teammates were consistent throughout. And so you see the rates are pretty consistent as well. And the big thing, the big outlier, of course, is mission 4, where it wasn't so much that my number of defeats was high, it was the fact that we only lasted 11 minutes before our failure condition was met. And one side note about that, the original plan was going to be a total team wipe. So this was our original goal. 5 out of 5 had to drop for the test to end. But what I decided after running Shimr, and then subsequent to this, I've also run your Falcons test at this point. Here's the issue. Between Shimr's missions and Jier's missions, Shimr's team did ultimately hit 5 out of 5. It was a couple minutes after this, we did actually hit officially 5 out of 5. But when I ran Jier's team, spoiler, they went further, and the issue really starts to turn into a marathon slog of missions to the point where your players are getting exhausted from trying to do this. So what I ultimately decided was, and I saw this in Jier's mission specifically, it wasn't so much that, and again, I don't want to spoil it too much. It wasn't so much that the team or my support was doing great. We had one really tough character, for the most part, and probably in both of these teams. Your tanks are really tough, and especially a really well-built tank, they can kind of survive a lot. And so, I especially saw this in Shear's missions. The tank in that one was nigh unkillable, and it really stretched out where the point where he might have been the only person still standing, or most of the time maybe there was 2 people still standing, but it was always our tank. And so as long as he kind of held aggro and kept things going, somebody else could make a res by combining inspirations, or one of the other surviving players could run around and res everybody else. So we kind of kept this yo-yo up and down thing going while our tank held things down. And so I'm not sure, between sort of just the marathon slog that results in, plus the fact that, hey, if my supporter's lying dead for 10 minutes straight while people are running around, rezzing people, is that really testing my support capabilities? So I don't think so. So at this point, what I've opted for is, if 4 out of 5 go down, that's it. Okay, boom, done. Team game over. Also, I want to institute a time limit on each tier of the mission. I haven't 100% decided on what it's going to be yet, but I think it's pretty safe to say that the tier 1s will be 30 minutes. And then I'm either going to go up by 15 at that point, so 45, 60, 75, 90, up to tier 5, and tier 5 will be the end of it. But even that's kind of a long stretch if you actually make it that far. And most people are kind of gassing out around 2 hours. But if I limit it too much, like 30 minutes, that might be okay for the first couple tiers, maybe 3 tiers. But the tier 4, spoiler, Jier's team makes it past 11 minutes, and goes much further, but it's a lot longer than 30 minutes, or 60 minutes. So I don't want to limit it too much where a team is really going. but I do want to have some sort of limit on it. Now, the missions already have 2-hour time limits on them, so it's not like this is completely brand new idea. I'm just cutting it in much shorter. So I'm thinking maybe 30, 45, 60, or if I really want to push it, 30, 40, 50, 60, something like that. I don't know if 60, 70 minutes is really going to be doable on those, but maybe that's part of the test. It forces your team to actually push the limits and not just kind of, sissy around and rest every 30 seconds to get back up to full. So, I may ultimately opt for this, faster pace scenario because I think this is a little more realistic. You've got, about 2.5 hours here, something like that. 1, 2, 3 hours if you're really pushing it. I don't think, I mean, from what I've seen so far, getting this far is really going to be a challenge, especially if you do the 4 out of 5. But that's kind of what I want to do. Sort of want to limit things down to make it a little more realistic without having to stop the test and then restart it the next day or the next week or whatever. Because I think that's going to ultimately lead to a lot of roster changes. So anyway, back to Shimr's game here. So long story short, we hit the 4 out of 5 at the 11-minute mark, ended it. There's your stats. Now, hey, what does this mean, if anything? So if you go ahead and then run a correlation study, which is you plot those two variables on a little XY axis here. So time and defeats. So as time goes up, hey, what happens to defeats? So you're thinking, hey, as the longer you go, the more defeats there should be. If that's true, then you should see, a nice positive slope curve. And then what you can do is a correlation or an R squared test, which asks the question, is this line, is this slope, is this representative of the data? Is this increase in time causing this increase in defeats? Are they related to each other? Are they correlating to each other? And the closer this number gets to 1, the more you can say that's true. This is essentially a percentage. So what are the odds? What's the chances that this line, this slope, this rate of change is the true relationship? You could see here that the test shows 0.48, so only like a 48% chance, if you want to say that. So it's really not super strong correlation. So if you interpret the data, here's what you can find out or what you can learn. Shimr was mostly stable, as you saw with those first 3 missions, pretty rock solid until she wasn't. Her defeat rate was near 0 for those missions. There were 2 defeats in those 11 minutes of mission 4, showed the spike of vulnerability when the conditions deteriorated fast. So we're going to take a look at that in a minute. So when the conditions crapped the bed, boom, bodies were dropping. The other thing that you can get from that study here is that mission length really didn't predict safety. It really didn't matter how long she was on a mission. She survived the longest mission, that was mission 2 for her, just 1 death. And her highest death rate came in the shortest mission, mission 4, which was extremely chaotic. So survivability isn't connected to loss, at least for her and her build. It's more loss of control or the team's breakdown and something leads to just a collapse and her getting mopped up. So I want to take a look at her deaths so that you can see why they happen. So I'm going to go ahead and pause for a second, pull up that YouTube video I posted, and we'll kind of run through the play here and see what happened. Be right back. All right, so I've added these timestamps to the video. So if you go check out that recording, you'll find it in the Defcon folder, one of the live streamed videos I did about a week ago. And you'll see this video here, the Cold Domination Controller 801 trials. And the timestamps are go right to where people were dropping, so you can kind of follow along a lot more cleanly. All right, so here's what's up. And I apologize for the quality of the video. I live streamed this, like I said, through YouTube, and it's supposedly recorded in HD, but the quality of this recording is not like what my normal, videos that I record here on my PC are I have higher resolution, so it's a little bit grainier than I normally would have posted. Lesson learned. I don't know if I'll rely upon YouTube's recording DVR service there. But anyway, here's what's going on. So here is Shimr in the middle of the pack here. And you can see we've got our Widows here, our tank outshined is here, our blasters over here, and I think our other tank is over here, maybe. And we're fighting a group right in the front here. There's also some fighting happening over here. And then what you want you to pay attention. Here's our other tank. He's over here. So what I want you to do is pay attention to this group because I think our other tank Emotep taunts them and pulls them back. Now watch what I do, which is a mistake, and you'll see why I end up dying here. Go ahead and hit the play button.
My ass, dude.
Okay, here comes that group. And all right, let me pause it again because see if you catch what caught my eye. So as they come around, their main dude catches my eye because he targets me.
Freaking play.
See if you caught that or not. Back it up again.
Oh, shit.
Right there. Right, here he comes, and what does he do? Targeting me right there. That guy who caught my eye as he comes around the corner, right here, he's a cold dominating debuffer, just like I am. And I'm like, hell no. There's no way there's another cold domination person on this board. This guy's mine. So he comes around and he targets me for some reason, probably because I'm dropping rain and ice patch, I think, on people. So he fires at me, catches my eye.
Deep. Oh, he's cold in my ass, dude. This is.
Okay, so now if you kind of watch the rest of what happens here.
I didn't do that.
All right, so those are the guys to our left. Here's the guys in front of us.
Oh, shit. Deep. Oh,
He
he's
targets
cold in
me.
my ass, dude.
Okay, Emotep's in front of me. Here comes this whole group.
This is. Freaking play.
Okay, so now normally the way we've been playing is I've been a good girl, well, a good boy, my good girl character. It could be a different color here that shows up. Shimmer's been a good girl, and she's been staying in the back, right? Her tanks are in front of her, her widow's in front of her, her blaster's typically behind or right next to her, but she's been using this, wall of beef in front of her. Now, this guy grabs my attention, and we're into the second mission at this point. Nobody's died. It's been almost an hour at this point, and so I'm feeling good. And then this person attacks me. Now, all my normal wall of beef is all heading. I see them all heading this way. Right, they're over here now. Here's the widow, tank, and tank. Blasters behind me. So I am now out front, relatively, facing this new group because everybody else is over here to the other group that we're also attacking. So we got two groups here.
Oh, shit.
And then that's it. Here they come. I'm like, oh, I got these guys. Sleep, beam, dead. Okay. What I should have done is not engage these guys because you can see me looking at them and I was commenting, I'm going to get this guy. And so I start engaging here. What I should have done is shifted to the left like I saw my beef doing and stayed behind them because we had a group over here we were still fighting and now another group is coming at us in this direction. I should have shifted. There's no reason I should have stayed out front and left myself completely exposed because these guys, they really don't have anybody else to fire at. other than whoever's been doing all the aggroing in here, which is primarily me because I've got ice slick and crap that I've dropped here. So these guys are coming around and they just start blasting me, and I get like 2 shot, done, game over.
Frickin' play.
Blam, here comes one,
Oh shit.
two, done. And you can see that I'm just like, oh shit, shouldn't have done
I
that.
don't know what the hell just
There you
happened.
go. Boom. That was our first defeat, my first defeat of the vid. Let's pull up the next one. All right, here comes the next one. Now it's the next mission, warehouse map. And I'm actually going to have a back-to-back death here, about 30 seconds apart. Sometimes I don't count the back-to-back. It depends what happened. If it's a back-to-back where, let's say I died and I'd like eat and awaken right away and get just obliterated before I even stand up, I don't count that as a double. But there is a gap between my two reses, and I believe somebody vengeances off of one of them. So at that point, the hand is off the piece. You've made your move, so I'm counting it. But let me set the scene for you here first. So we're in a warehouse map, and there is, these are the ones, the big old rooms, and they got like the shelves between the big, room here, and there's like groups everywhere. And then on the other side, I think this is where we're at. So I think we've cleared out this area, and we're come around here, and there's hallway here, and there's a hallway there, and I think we're at this one. And ahead is one of these middle room things. You come around, and there's like guys in this room, and there's doors they can come in and out of or whatever. So I think this is what you're seeing here is we're finishing off a group here, and there's another group up ahead that would be somewhere up here. I'm pretty sure this is what's going on. And let's see. Yes, we're finishing this group, and I think Outshine just pulled them. All right. Yeah, so he's looking there. There's Outshining ahead of me, right there. And I think he does something to these guys to get their attention. I see he's making a motion to him. I don't remember what power that is. It's like almost like a teleport. I think it's something. So here they come. Now they're attacking him.
Alright,
All
give me
right,
some
so we
goodies, though.
pulled.
Give me some goodies.
All right, I'm cool with that. Our other tank is now taunting. So Emotep is over here taunting. Outshine his move here. Remember, we got two tanks, so these guys are all coming around. Val looks like he's gone to the corner to engage. Me and the blaster standing in the back like, good boy, good girl. Let the stuff come in. I unload with cryonic, my judgment.
That's gonna get me killed, I think.
Then I unload with sleet, ice storm, and ice patch. Goes sleet. Here comes ice patch, and I'm taking damage, right? Because they're pissed because I just unloaded on them. I see Vale is taking huge hits. Remember Vale, brave Widow Vale dove in a little bit too close to the sun because Outshined was, here's the corner, and Outshine had come back here. Your other tank's over here, and Vale, Brave Vale, went up here to engage more in melee. And I'm just dropping pain on everybody. So I see Vale taking damage. I'm like, ooh, I gotta help her. I'm the supporter. And you can see what I'm geared up to do. I've got my cursor ready to click rebirth. I just need to get a little bit closer to Vale in order to save her. So I get in, click re. No, I don't click rebirth. I'm freaking dead before I can click rebirth. So I'm taking a little bit of trickles of damage, some burn patch or something. Let me click it, and some massive nuke or something just blasts me, and I'm dead. Right there. That fast. Vale is almost dead too. Now remember, there's a back-to-back death here.
Fucking
So now I'm down.
God, why did I try to
I'm going,
Save Vale.
and my fault. I shouldn't try to save Vale. Like, screw Vale. Screw you, Vale. You save yourself next time. I'm not a
I'm not here
healer.
next time, bro.
All right, now they get Vengeance right there. So they venge off me.
I'm gonna save you,
So that's
and
the
I
team
can
gets a
do
buff out of
nothing
it,
on
which
my
might have
turn.
saved Vale's life. And I'm like, all right, what do I do? Do I
Oh,
res?
this is
Oh,
dangerous right
look,
here.
somebody's going to use a resurrection, barrier resurrection. Oh, well, I'll get up with that. Let me get my buffs going again.
Dude, no good deed goes unpunished.
Let me get that rebirth off. I got it. Yay, I've rebirthed them. Oh,
Oh my.
dead again. So twice in a row within about 30 seconds because I'm trying to rebirth heal these idiot melee people in front of me. I should have just left them alone. Okay. Cold domination, you're not a healer. So I gotta watch my own ass because I'm the only one who's healing here. So bam, those are my deaths 2 and 3 back to back. Boing. All right, let me go ahead and pull up the next couple. Actually, I'm gonna hold off on showing you my next couple deaths because that's when the real hits the fan. So let's go ahead and take a look at ally defeats. This is my other major stat I recorded. Risk, ally defeats. So it's going to be similar story, I think, to what you saw with Shimmer's personal defeats. We've got minimal to no defeats with those first 3 missions, right? 0, 1. Mission 3 gets a little bit squirrely. 4 is on the higher side for at least my support characters at this point. And, but fairly low, fairly consistent. Rate of 0, 03, and then 1-4. But bam, look what happens. Mission 4 blows up everything. Mission 4 was the Doom mission. It only lasted 11 minutes before bodies started dropping. Here's your correlation study. And as you can imagine, given that one huge outlier right up here, right, the R squared, the correlation, this graph, this slope doesn't fit this data. Now, if you didn't have this outlier, the slope is doing pretty good, right? It's pretty tight to these numbers. Now, everything on the slope wise, by the way, is allowed to pass through the origin back here because at time 0, there are no defeats, right? Everybody's still alive at the start. So this does hold as a true statement. So there's technically another point of data down here. So that's what you're seeing this line of best fit is tracking towards like that. So the data's not too bad with those first 3 missions. It's pretty tight. This, if I didn't have this one, the correlation would be way higher. But this, it's a real data point, so I can't ignore it. So hey, what's the interpretation here? The team was fragile under collapse conditions. So once the hit the fan, bodies started dropping, and there was nothing we could do about it. Mission 4 showed a near immediate cascading death, right? Death cascade once the structure broke down for a team, and you're going to see that. That's why I wanted to hold off showing you Shimmer's final 2 deaths. You had 19 allied defeats in 11 minutes. That's a huge breakdown in the durability of the team. Uh, but it also shows you that the allies' safety is not related to mission length either. The safest missions were longer ones, missions 1 and 2, and the shortest was that Bloodbath mission 4. So cold domination helps with maintaining control over time, but here's where it falls apart. It doesn't have the ability to recover when things unravel. Here's where a set like, and I hate to say it, but here's where a set like an empathy set could have an advantage. When you get into those failure conditions, something like empathy that can have a huge heal and bring somebody back, or a resurrection or something like that, right? That could make that recovery process more guaranteed. Where Colt doesn't have that, right? You shield people and then you pray, right? You're shielding and then you're debuffing, controlling. That's all you're doing at that point. So you have this fire and forget support set. It's not big on the buffs. So something like, thermal, empathy, pain, those types of sets might be much better in a scenario that you'll see in Mission 4. I don't know. I'm still skeptical because I think without the buffing shields that Cold would have had, there would have been a lot more of these bloodbaths to go around where something like empathy, I don't know if you could just keep up with the amount of incoming damage, but just something to consider. Uh, Risk was situational, it wasn't gradual. Huge dump in deaths in the one mission makes her average super high and makes the volatility, the float of the numbers crazy. And so she does offer strong proactive tools, but there is no reactive tools here. So, you know, there is the crowd control aspect and the debuff aspect, but if that fails to stop or slow the incoming fire soon enough, the damage starts building up and there's nothing to react with at that point. So that's the big takeaways there. Let's go ahead and take a look at the video though and see where some of these defeats and deaths came about. So let me pause again and cue this up. All right, the first Allied defeat happened in that same cargo ship where Shimr's first defeat, Mission 2, about 10 minutes after she was defeated, this one happens. So let's take a look and see if we can figure out what it is and why. All right, so we are... Okay, I see what it is. Hold on, hold on. All right, so let's back this up. Back it up, back it up, back it up. All right, so here we go. We have set the scene for you. So you know the cargo ship maps, right? Got the big old cargo ship, and it's divided into multiple compartments or whatever. And so I was just, and I forget this, I think it might have been the last compartment here. So I had just exited from here, and the team is over here fighting, and I'm buffing and coming after them. And so one thing I want you to notice is that it's pretty much clear at this point, right? I think it might have maybe I chased down a rudder. So we have a clear open path here. You see my allies like Vales up here, and I'm going up there to go join them. We'll pick it up from here. Right there they are. They're fighting. It probably was a runner I was chasing down. All right, so here we go. We've got big old compartment. Well, one of the last compartments. And we just came in from here. And you know, there's like the big old shipping containers like this. And so we came in, fought this group, and now the party's over here. And we're targeting that middle area between the cargo containers. All right, so you can see us. We're around the corner here, pulling stuff in. And I want you to watch our blaster, Lawrence. All right, so I start throwing down the debuffs. Ice storm. Or sorry, that was sleet. Oh, let me unload here. All right, we got these guys. We're pulling them in, destroying them. No big deal. All of a sudden, I start hearing stuff behind me. Like, what the hell? So I turn around and there's guys behind me for some reason. I don't know where the hell they came from. Oh, wait, there's even more guys. This is another one of these, I think, notorious 801 ambushes. Spoiler for Mission 4. So these guys appeared out of nowhere and start firing at us from behind. And I think that's Lawrence that yells he's flanked. And you could see they're blasting away. And Lawrence just took a huge hit. He's at full health.
Whoa, 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 whoa.
Boom, boom, incoming fire. Bam. He gets hit a couple times. He's yelling flanked. So I think he's getting shot in the back. I turn around and start to control this. All right. Lawrence, you just saw him. He got flanked and he just went like this and booked it, trying to break line of sight. 'Cause I think these guys were primarily targeting him, and he's now you can see his speech bubbles over there. So he just dipped around the corner here, and I'm like, where the hell is he? Because I'm trying to help him somehow. All right, he's full healed. All right, now he's coming back. He's getting shot again though. He might have aggroed the other guys on the other side. I don't know. Or they were still chasing him. Something. But look, now his health is almost zero, and boom, it is zero. I think he just jumped and he lands dead somewhere. Boom, he's dead. Ambush starts it. There's nothing I can do. He's dead. It's that fast. All right. Next is mission 3. So that was it for mission 2. I had a death. Lawrence had a death. Mission 3. This is the one with the big warehouse. I died twice on this map. But here you go. This is one of those big open warehouse rooms, right? You come in from, let's say, here, and there's the big, shelving here and the shelving here. And there's usually, like a group like here and over here and probably over there and over here, say 4 corners or something like that. So we've already just cleared this group. And so now we're, kind of scouting it out. You can see, hey, there's a group right in front of us that's right there. That's this group. And I think somebody goes over here. I think we split. Let me back it up a little bit more because I think that's what happens. All right, yes, we just finished that group in front of us. All right, so there's a group dead ahead. There's Outshine, there's Emo. Now, Outshine goes to the left. So one tank is heading this way. Emotep is heading this way. I wonder if that'll be a problem. All right, I'm buffing. I see blasters going with Emotep. I'm shielding up. I don't see Veil, and I don't see Outshine. I'm assuming they're off to the left. But look, there's incoming fire from the middle that's targeting these seers who I think are Emotep's pets. So our tank has aggro at this point. Boom, boom, boom. Now he's also taking it. I see incoming fire from this side now too. But Emotep's already had his attention drawn this way. So now he's got people shooting him on this side. And he's got stuff coming at him from this direction. And I don't see, again, our other tank or our Widow. I'm not sure where they are.
I'm gonna keep your ass alive.
All right, so at this point, it's now too late. Now I see where they are. I've looked over. They're over here. And it looks like they've engaged this group. So remember, there's the 4 corners. They engaged. We already finished this corner. There was this corner, there's another group, and there's this group. So Emotep has engaged this group. These guys look like they have engaged that group, but I think maybe part of this group is coming through the middle as well. So Emotep's kind of on an island here. And I'm not sure what happened to Lawrence, if he's behind me or not. All right, I'm like, what the hell's going on? So now, Outshine comes back. I don't know if he was trying to pull and bring everybody together. But okay, Emotep's just taking a freaking beating. I mean, there's nothing. He's taking it from everybody at this point. All right, I'm like, what is going on? So my attention's now split. Left, right, center. Where is everybody going? Outshine's taking damage. I have to make sure everybody's shielded still, so I'm trying to get them targeted. But where are they? And Emotep's taking huge attacks damage from the group that he's pulled in on the far end, and the middle's attacking him. I see him, and I'm like, oh, I gotta try to help him. Again, though, I have just shields. I think I've already got him shielded. So what else can I do? I'm like, well, I can frost work him, but my frost work is still recharging. Oh, I know what I can do. I've got rebirth. I can give him a heal. I see him coming back this way, so I'm thinking, well, I'll just go over there and catch him. But if you watch his positioning, you'll see what happens. He's behind a box, a crate. So I can't get good, line of sight. I think this crate will block my rebirth aura. And I didn't want to go in this direction to try to meet him because that huge group of dudes is coming after him and he's taking all kinds of fire. So I'm like, well, I'll come around this way and get him. And meanwhile, now we got this group coming in for a squeeze play. So my plan was I'm going to do a quick dipsy doodle past him and hit rebirth as I go by. He just needs to hold out for another couple seconds. Right? He's a tank. He can do it. So let me go get him. Dead. Boom. So that was just a tactical mistake. I don't know who got the signals crossed. If Emo was supposed to follow Outshine. It was Outshine following Emho. Were they trying to pull and bring the whole room in one area? I don't think that's a smart idea, just given the challenge level of these guys and the fact that we're only a team of five. It seemed like they were trying to pull both sides towards the middle. You know, maybe they were communicating and like Emo's like, well, I'll get this group and bring them back here. And Outshine's like, I'll get this group and bring them here. And it'll just like crush them in the middle. That could work if it was a planned, executed move by the whole team. I had no idea. You know, had I known they were coming, I might have thrown some debuff out here, throw my snowstorm on them and slow them down or something. I don't know. I could have done something, maybe try to help them or pre-rebirth, get the regen on somebody. But boom, Emotep's done. He's out. All right, so following Emotep's defeat were then my two defeats, and now we're a few minutes after my two defeats. We're moving into another one of these tight, corridors here, and I think, oh yeah, yeah. Let me back this up more because I think you'll see exactly what the hell goes down here. Back it up. Back, 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 back. Okay, yeah, yeah. Here's another tactical error. All right, so we just clear this group. We're moving up to this. All right, it's a T intersection. So check it out. We've got a hallway here, and it goes to the right and goes to the left. And then, there's a big room in the middle. I don't know if anybody was in this room or not, but it's one of these things, and it goes around that center room like that. So we're just coming up. You've got Emotep is here. You got Outshined is here. Lawrence is next to me. And these guys, you'll see what they do that causes the problem. Boom. Again, our two tanks split. I don't know if this was their strategy going in where, hey, I'll get the left, you get the right. But again, they do it again. One tank goes this way. The other tank is going this way. I don't know. I don't think it's a good idea. And I think you'll see what happens. I mean, it's fine as long as you're not too far apart. The problem for me as the supporter is I now no longer have line of sight on one of my tanks. I can't help you if I can't see you. All I see is there's some fighting going on right here. I've got my blaster and my other tank in front of me. I can see them. I can see enemies. I can target stuff. Let's continue. All right. Val goes in there. Val also is looking to the right. I'm panning to the left, like, okay, maybe Emotep, is going to come around or going to come back, or maybe he's pulling and going to bring him in. And that wouldn't be a bad idea. I could see that. They do a quick, right? We got left. We got right. We got this intersection T here. One tank's over here. Yoink them. And then you can hang out here, corner pull. Same thing over here, corner pull. Now we set up a kill box here in the middle of this intersection, which is great, right? I can start raining my stuff down there. Lawrence can start raining stuff. Val can get in there, start kicking some ass. And you're by doing that, your tanks are blocking off half of the incoming damage on themselves, which is going to keep them kicking longer. Uh, you know, Standing there just taking a huge beating from a bunch of guys unsupported isn't going to help you or the team. Let's see. Boom. They're fighting. Val's getting roasted. They had a lot of fire. Boom. Emotep. Huge hits. Huge hits. I'm like, where the hell is he? So you can see now starting to target. I'm like, where'd he go? Maybe I can throw something on him.
Get out of there,
All right, I target. All right, he's over there. He's still taking huge freaking damage. Now he's backing out. Okay. He turns around and sees, like, maybe he's going, oh shit, the other side is plugged too. All right. And what's funny is Lawrence is healing him. Lawrence has like some heal power, I think, from a day job or something. He's healing him. Emotep's healing himself. Again, I think Emotep needed to pull back. He needed to get his ass over here, stand on these barrels or something, bring these punks around. We could have taken them here. All right, let's keep going. All right, I'm starting to drop pain over there. Let me back him up. Okay, rebirth heal, regen, cryonics in there. Lawrence is pumping in there. So now look, Here comes all the pain from your controller, your blaster is just unloading on these guys. We're saving Emo's ass. Okay, but imagine if he pulls these guys back a few feet closer. We could have done this right here in the middle with both groups. Boom, some control, throwing cold snap on them. There goes Lawrence's judgment. Just went Vorpal on their ass. Now the enemies are just melting. Boom, boom. But check out our Widow. They're behind me fighting with Outshined. Right now I see Widow's taking damage. Let me turn and do something here. I don't know. Heat loss. Dead. Alright, I've already used Rebirth. I'm like, well, heat loss maybe can lower damage, resistance, something, get you some endurance. I don't know. Slow down the enemies, just use the debuff. But at this point, look at what's going on over here. It's total carnage. They're just surrounded. And the other problem, I gotta, like Vale kept punching so deep over the time, all the time. Like, bro, I know you're a badass Widow, but these guys are no joke. They're gonna debuff the crap out of your defense. Remember, the other thing is I have an aura, right? I have a damage resistance defense aura, my Arctic fog around me. These guys are punching far, punching deep. They get out of that extra layer of protection. Now, was that going to make a difference? I don't know. It might have, right? It could have. Staying tight. If you back this all up again, right? If we go to that T intersection, right? We had one tank go this way, one goes this way. Emotep keeps punching in here, staying put. Outshined and Vale keep punching this way. I'm a supporter. Which way do you want me to go? Left, right? Hey guys, how about this for the plan? And I don't mean to rag on these guys, but hey, tactically speaking, tank 1, tank 2, here's the better play. You go over here, grab your aggro, come back. You grab your aggro, come back. We then meet in the middle here with Lawrence's blasting, my control-y debuff rain stuff, and then Vale, who's got a lot of like PB AoE stuff, she could be standing right here unloading. And because I'm right here, now you guys are within my aura, getting some extra protection. You're within the controls and the patches that can be dropped here. These enemies are going to be getting wrecked. And if we needed to, if things got too hot, we could still back down to around this corner and catch them here again. So I think here's an example sort of impatience, right? I'm going to go in there. I'm going to go in there. Or maybe overconfidence by your melee types. I got this. I can do it myself. And I think that's the Achilles heel, especially with these 801s, is because you got some really, I mean, these guys have great builds. I'm not going to say they don't, right? But the 801s are no joke. There's like no mercy. So you make a mistake and you pay for it within 30 seconds. It happens every single time. If you watch these things, you'll see it over and over again. Boom, boom, boom. All right, so Vale, down you go. Nothing I can do. You're out. Blam. There's just a freaking huge swarm of guys. Next death. All right, so our next death is going to happen like a cascade right here. So there goes Vale, and this is the other problem with defeats. One guy drops, that's 20% of your firepower, right? 20% of your defense, 20% of your damage soak, whatever. It's a fifth of your team is down. It's not easy to recover from that, especially if the reason you're dying is you're already getting overrun. Now, right now, the left side's pretty good. I think, Lawrence and Shimr there with Emotep laid out most of them over here. But now, Outshine is completely surrounded, and you can see it's a jailbreak, right? I mean, Outshine doesn't have aggro control of these guys. These guys are busting loose, and you can see who they're pointing at. They're pointing at Lawrence, and they're pointing at me, going, ooh, blaster meat, controller wings, let's get them.
Shit, he's beam sweeping us, guys. Oh,
He
fuck.
gets the vengeance off. I get almost freaking killed. I'm backing out. Lawrence is backing out. Val gets up. Okay. Which is risky as hell because You're right in the middle of the pocket of doom. You don't have any of your shields up for yourself or me at this point, and I've had to back off. So here's your problem again, right? Here's our supporters. Here's that T intersection. We, your supporter, your blaster, in this case, support by firepower. We're now having to back out. So you don't have our cover because you're not here in this hallway. You got group over here and group over here. We're backing out now. We're getting overrun. We don't have any tank support managing our aggro, and our Widow is just freshly killed and getting back up and extremely vulnerable at this point. So, what do you want these two guys to do taking on this group of dudes that's coming in here that's essentially one-shotting anybody who's not a tank? Boom, I'm getting roasted. I'm getting blasted. I'm trying to throw some controls. I'm eating Skittles. Lawrence is pumping his debuffs in there. I'm like, let me shield him. Let me get him up. Got it. We got him. We got him. We got him. Lawrence is getting punished. Velt. Boom. Lawrence is down. Right there. I mean, we're just overrun. Blasters and controllers don't have the hit points to soak these EB damages or boss level damages. So you can see how much damage he's taken. He's got my regen on him. He's fully health. I've got him shielded. There's nothing else. He's standing in my aura. There's nothing else I can do. I'm dropping controls. I'm dropping debuffs. Lawrence is dead. Val, who just got up, is trying to get back in the fight, and then they're dead. Right? That res by Val should have waited. Again, if you could rewind this play, this, you know, again, I'm 2020 vision, guys, right? So don't get offended that I'm pointing out the errors, but right. So if your tank one Emotep brings them back here, tank two outshined brings them back here. Now we've got all the bad guys sitting here in the hallway, and we could be raining doom on them. Val is parked here, so imagine this tank, Widow, tank, this wall of beef and melee destruction backed up by your blaster and your controller, setting up debuff and control patches here. Lawrence had a bunch of debuff with his tactical arrow that was super synergistic with my stuff. This would have been a freaking devastating clean sweep of these guys. And even if they didn't start off this way, at some point they needed to back out. I mean, you see bodies are dropping, so you need to back your ass out and regroup. This was the biggest Achilles heel with this team, was the insistence on keep pushing forward. And kind of the same thing as your Falcons team, similar. The instinct to move forward like it's just a regular old radio mission or some speed run task force, it doesn't work. It gets people killed, including yourself. And when you go down, it's really not a good idea to res right in the middle of the action because you're 9 times out of 10 easily you're going to drop again. So boom, boom, there's your next two deaths on mission 3, and there's nothing I could really do about it. I'd already done everything I could. I couldn't do anything more to help Vale at this point because I've had to back out, and I just lost Lawrence. And at this point, it's just me against whatever the hell else is coming around that corner. All right, on to mission 4, aka the bloodbath. So you'll see I end up with 2 more deaths with Shimr, and the team ends up with 19 more deaths. It's total bedlam, and you're going to see why. Now, if you're planning on running these things yourself and you don't want to spoil it, if you ever run this one, stop the video now or skip ahead to the rest of the stat talk. But you'll see what's about to happen. It's freaking outrageous. This is your final warning as to what's going on. 3, 2, 1. Okay, so modern office map as you see, and we're gonna come around after defeating a group of EBs. This particular mission has I think it's like all EBs just about, and so we beat up the group in the front room that you enter the map at, and you go around this O-shaped corridor, and you can see ahead there's a opening to another room, right? It's another one of these rooms here. So we're right here, coming around this way, taking a peek. Our tanks are out front, Widow's in the middle, blaster controller in the back. Again, this is our standard formation. It's been working pretty well so far. So we're gonna see what's going on. I'm shielding people up. They taunt and pull. And again, we're looking like we're, and I don't have a problem here. So check out what they're doing here. Unlike what happened in that last set of deaths, the last mission, we've got one tank is pulled this direction. The other one is pulling over on this side. So we've got splitting the aggro, but it's creating this space here that is going to be a nice kill box as the guys are coming through. Some are going to go this way, some are going to try to go that way, but bam, they're going to get drilled in the middle. And you can see kind of Vale's moving into that center position to put the cork back in the bottle here. So boom, looks great. Let's fire this up. Love the move. Okay, let them come in, let them come in. All right, let me go ahead, start dropping the ice slick. A little bit of sleet. My pets are contributing here. Although Jack Frost is dead. Spoiler, pets died a lot. Throw some controls. There we go. A little frost breath. All right, there's just damage raining down. Bodies are dropping. Perfect execution. Pulling everything in. They can't get past the kill box. We got this, no problem.
Debuffs on these guys.
All right, it's just sacks of hit points here. Let's just keep hitting them.
Get in there, Loa.
And both our tanks move the other side, which is a little riskier for me because I'm the only one over here. Originally, remember, we had one tank was sitting here, but they both have gone over to this side. It could be because, you're taking too much fire, or maybe it splits the aggro too much, but our bulk of our melee stuff is here. Would have been nice maybe if one of them kind of stayed here just, as a safety precaution, but might have opened them up to too much fire. I don't know. I wasn't standing there to find out myself. All right, getting the pets out. Summoning my lower bones, send that in there. My lore pets are out. Buff up my zombie. Let him go in there, do something. Put the pets on aggressive. All right, Jack is recharged. I don't know if I bring him out yet. Get more damage, more destruction. Just raining stuff down here. These guys are being slaughtered. One thing I noticed with the EBs, they're not as varied like debuffs and stuff, I don't think, as like the other lieutenants and minions and things. But as you go higher up in the levels of these tiers, you get fewer lower ranks and more high ranks. All right, now here's where things are about to get bad. As you can see, we're kicking some ass, right? We cleared the main entry room behind us. We've just come through that little O-shaped hallway, and we're punching through to this open room, and there's like side doors and stuff left and right that we can go and clear out. And we're down a handful of EBs left. We got this. Let's start to move forward. But something in the back of my mind is going, man, I don't like this. This is like kind of too easy at this point. I'm fearing some ambush. I'm fearing something. And I think you see me pan around at some point. So I'm like, all right, let me see if I do my pan.
Oh, dude, my freaking zombie just got.
Still just dropping bombs. All right, shielding up. Still got this.
Come on, Jack, get in there.
All right, summon Jack. Get him in there. More pets, more damage. Still doing this.
Hey, Jackie boy. Jacked up.
Got it. No problems. Still doing great. All right, so here you see me panning, right? Because I'm like, I don't know. I don't like this. Like, there's only guys coming up here. There's got to be something more to this. Val takes a huge hit. which draws my attention back to the fight. So I'm like, what the hell?
Starting to get paranoid. Oh, fail.
Where's Val? Oh, right there. Let me help you out, Val. Rebirth, and then bam. So soon as I was almost like this was plotted, right? Because I was panning my camera. I'm like, I don't like this. This is like too simple, too easy. There's got to be something more. And all of a sudden, Vale takes a big hit, which brings me back focused forward. And soon as I click on Vale to get some healing, and I click my rebirth, I'm like, oh, let me get that going. Wham!
Oh
You
shit.
get freaking huge ambush of elite bosses right behind me. Boom, I'm stunned and I'm dead. Within, well, let's count it. One, 1,000,
Shit.
two, 1,000, three, 1,000. Like
Really?
3 seconds. I'm stunned and dead. Bam, I go down. Death number 4 for me. Lawrence.
I
There
fucking.
goes Vale. I'm like, dude, we're getting fucking wrecked. I'm like, this is it. There goes Lawrence. Boom, boom, boom. Within a few seconds of each other. Dead, dead, dead. All right, so I'm like, Rez, let me see if I can get my ass up and to safety because I'm seeing the writing on the wall. Because right now we've just lost 3 of our 5. If now this is before I was doing the 4 out of 5 rule. If I was doing the 4 out of 5 rule, I still would have done this. But I'm thinking we've only got 2 tanks left, and even though they're tough, they're not going to survive the original group of EBs and this huge group. They might not even know what the hell's going on because they were forward focused right now. Boom, boom. So I'm like, I got to get up and see if I can maybe get out of here to get myself back to full and come back around and do something. So I get up, freaking get myself break free, run. And okay, I'm good. I'm good. Let me get my shields back up. Wait a second. There's a guy right there. He's invisible.
Hold on, guys.
I don't like this.
Alright, I bet you I can TP
Oh, he
their asses.
sees me or something. He's coming.
Fucking get away from me, dude.
Oh shit.
Hold on,
Meanwhile, now look, our 2 tanks are taking a freaking beating. Right? Go back. Actually, wait. I didn't even see that part. All right, so our 2 tanks, I'm like trying to get my shit together. Watch our tanks.
oh, that guy wants a piece of me big time. Hold on, guys. Hold on, hold on.
Hemotep's down. There's right now we got only 2 bodies still up.
Alright, I bet you I can TP their asses.
Outshine's holding in as strong as he can.
Me, dude.
Emotep reses.
Hold on. I want to try to get you guys.
Outshine goes down. We're down to 1 more death with the 4 out of 5 roll, and it's over. Emotep's juicing up. He's eating his purple Skittles. I'm like, okay, here's my plan. Now here, I think, is the turning point of this. Right now we're on the ropes, right? We're getting wrecked. But here's what I've got. I've got ATT. Right now I've only got like one dude kind of poking around looking at me, but I'm at full. I got 3 people down and one guy who's just got back up. Here's my thinking. All you guys, I'm going to teleport your asses back to me so I can shield people up. Maybe they can res real quick, but at least get some shields on Emotep and whoever, right? And get them buffed up as best we can. So ATT buff. That was my thinking. Now here's the problem. Ready? All right, ATT. All right, look, Outshine is up. I'm like, this is good. He'll come here too, and I can get him shielded. Outshine is up. Teleport. Come on, baby. Here comes my 2 squishy friends, Vale and Lawrence. Where are my tanks? Where are my tanks? Tanks, why didn't you take the ATT? Take the ATT, you guys. Stop being so damn macho. This is the turning point right here. I'm I'm not trying to blame people, but I'm like, guys, if you take the ATT, we still have a chance. Because at this point, I would add all of you right here. I could have freaking buffed everybody back to the gills. We have a defensible position in this room, right? We got these pillars. That was my first instinct. We can at least hide behind these pillars and hold them off here. All right, but only two of them answer the call. So I'm like, all right, well, let me get these two up. Well, maybe the tanks are fine. You know, they're beefy tanks. They got a bunch of shields and shit. Let me at least get these two guys up. So, boom, I start buffing them. They start healing up. But bam, our two tanks are down again. All right, this is now racking up the bodies. Now we're screwed because that whole wave of dudes that was attacking tanks is now lost aggro on them. It's going to come for us. And I got two guys who are barely conscious over here. So again, this is where if my two tanks had answered the ATT summons,
That's about all I can do.
I think we could have had this. Right, here they come. Right, look at the time. We could set up a defensive position here or up here and hold these guys off. Because our two tanks could have at this because they were rezzed, right? I could have had them buff. They could have gone up here, taunt to the corner here, or stayed here and taunted. I don't know. We could have set up a defensive wall while these two guys got themselves back together.
Oh, fuck. Incoming.
So this is another tactical. Ooh, here they come. Tactical error. Now I didn't type message, fuckers accept this this ATT or else. I was just like ATT. Figure, hey, everybody's got either teleport confirmation on or automatically you're gonna get teleported over. You would accept it, especially given that 3 out of your 5 dudes is down. But I think sometimes people are thinking, my character's so tough I can hang in here, or they're trying to prove it to themselves. It's like, dude, you're not gonna hang in there. You lost all your support. You lost a lot of your firepower.
Move,
You
move,
might be a
move.
badass, but you're not a badass with that many
Fucking
EBs.
move.
Vale is taking too long to move
Out of there. Get out of there.
and gets absolutely crushed. I'm like, okay, Outshine is back up again. So I'm like, all right, let me get Outshined buffed. I mean, maybe most of the EBs just ran past us and they're distracted now. I can get our tank buffed again. Lawrence is coming with me, it looks like. So like, all right, Outshine. Except, oh shit, he's unaffected.
No, 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 no,
All
no.
right.
He's got that immune shit.
Now I'm starting to take damage again. I'm like,
Bro.
oh shit, I didn't see all these guys are still over there. I'm like, holy crap, because I was trying to maybe get to our other tank. I'm like, damn it, dude, this is
Move,
too
guys.
thick in here. And now I know the other guys are coming because Vale's down. Now the guys who ran and killed her are going to come back over here. Emotep is back up again, but here comes the other wave. Let me help Outshined. Where's Emotep? I been get him up. Shit, it's freaking on like Donkey Kong. I'm like, F it. I'm just gonna drop everything I can. Maybe we can hold this position with everybody. But here, my friends, you'll see something else that I just noticed. Look at this. Vale Widow went to Pocket D. That is a hospital visit. That is against the rules. That is a disqualification. So from henceforth, Val Widow is dead to me. She is a permanent death. I don't care if she's actually alive or not. She doesn't count. Now, moving forward, I'm actually going to have to do because if people do this, if they forget the rules and leave, and I'm not, I know, I think that, Val, I think just didn't know this rule. But hey, if people leave, it messes up the test because they come back. Did they get more Skittles? Did they come back full? And it just changes the dynamics. Whereas if they're on the map, we have to res them. Maybe we can vengeance off them, something like that, right? This is disqualifying. So this character is effectively dead. So if we're going with the 4 out of 5 rule, we now have permanently 1 down at this point, and Lawrence is about to be number 2. So even if Widow is alive and there's 2 out of 5 people, including Widow, it's going to be 1 out of 5 alive, and that's going to end the test anyway. But I think moving forward, if somebody does accidentally leave, because it happened again with, again, spoiler, your Falcons test, I had a person leave to go to the hospital, which again messes up, the test. So I think what I'm going to do, and hey, if this happens to you, if you forget, I'm going to slash kick you from the team. You can rejoin after the mission or after the big fight is over, but this is the only way I can preserve the integrity here because effectively Val should never have left and it'll change too many parameters of what could happen next. Now, as you can see, and I think you'll find out, it really doesn't matter anyway because look at this freaking runaway train. There's like 2 or 3 groups of freaking ambushers at this point, I think. Lawrence is about to bite it. There goes Lawrence. Now we're down 2. I'm freaking surrounded. I'm like, I'm just gonna try to bring down some of these bastards. Where are my tankies at? I don't know. Let me go find them. There's one.
Oh my god,
Oh no. There's guys everywhere.
you guys are.
All right, where's Emo? Let me try to get him
Buddy.
buffed. Maybe he can hold a position.
Dude, there's too many.
Maybe Outshine can do something. I'm trying to buff and move, buff and move.
Maybe up top.
All right, at this point, I have an idea. I see all around us are catwalks. And I remember when we first came into this room, those catwalks were empty.
We need a defensive position.
And I'm thinking, wait a minute, why don't we go up? We can defend the high ground and pull them up these damn stairs.
Up.
It's like, okay, so I type, I think, right here, up.
Head up.
I'm trying to get them high ground or head up, head up. So I'm like, guys, let's get up. All right, so at this point, look, the team's all back to full. Again, though, Veil doesn't count as far as I'm concerned at this point. Now, everything that happened since Veil left really wasn't impacted by Veil's departure. Now that she's back, though, it could have an effect. But she's still zoning in. Emotep's down again.
No, 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 no. Up, up, up.
There's my second death on this map. So now we got I'm down. Widow's down. Widow's just getting into the fight. And you can see because there are damage icons lighting up on her buff tray. Outshined is down.
Nope, nope, I'm not dead. I'm not dead. I'm good. I'm good.
I'm like, all right, I'm going to get back up. We're not that. Ooh, there goes Lawrence again.
Head up, guys. Head up here. We can hold them at this fucking point. High ground.
All right, and I'm like, guys, we got to go up. We got to defend this position. High ground. Boom, boom. There goes Vale. So Vale was only back for 30 seconds before she died again. Anyway, that's why I really don't feel like, yeah, it's a DQ, but it didn't like end the entire test because it really didn't matter. She just died again 30 seconds after coming back in, had minimal impact on any of the stats. Now we got 3 people down right there. That's it. As soon as Outshine dies, right here, 4 out of 5. Boom. That's it. 4 out of 5. Now we did go another couple minutes of running around like a chicken, and ultimately all 5 of us died anyway. But that's where my stats end, right there. And that is what you're seeing here. Boom. Resilience, damage taken. Let's take a look. Damage in. 3,659, 14,000, 5,000. This last mission, the rate was pretty high, 460 per minute. And when you plot it out correlation wise, you can see that correlation is getting higher. I still look for about 0.9 to be my cutoff to say that, yeah, there's definitely correlation. But you can see, yeah, as time is going on, Shimr was taking more damage, but it wasn't locked down. So it did predict pressure to a point. The first 3 missions definitely was longer duration, more damage. Mission 4, though, it shows the point that a spike damage can happen early, even if it's a short little mission. And you could also see that, Shimr, she's able to handle medium threats, sustained damage. Missions 1 and 2, controlled intake, low amounts of damage, stable. Mission 3, a good chunk of damage started coming in. Mission 3, 521 per minute. That was the cargo ship. No, that was the big office where we were being pelted. That was just a hard mission. But mission 3, she still endured. The cold shields, the slows, the debuffs, they did mitigate over time from what I can tell. But shorter missions don't mean safer in this. Mission 4, burst damage, not duration, is what really is making the damage happen. And so really as a controller, you need to lock down early if you can. Not just try to scale the mitigation down. You need to lock it down as best you can. Then a different stat that I put together here known as punishment correlation. This is the damage in versus my personal defeat. So was the incoming damage correlating with how many times I was defeated? The R squared on that one's pretty high, 0.79. The slope is 5,028. What that is that's how much damage I took before I was defeated. So I was taking, that doesn't mean how many hit points I have. It just means how much damage I was able to soak and regenerate and, whatever, heal up before I dropped. So just over 5,000. And so you can see based upon those stats, Shimr, she was able to weather these low and moderate pressure pretty well. Mission 1, taking about 3,700 damage, no defeats. Mission 2, 6,000 damage, 1 defeat. But then once the pressure starts kicking in, Mission 3, 14,500, 1 defeat. That kind of shows where her toolkit really is strong. So even though she was taking a lot of damage, it was spread out. It was not big bursts. Mission 4, though, 5,000 damage just in 11 minutes, 2 defeats. It was just too much. I mean, she just couldn't withstand that heavy duty pressure. And you saw what it was. It wasn't any bad decisions by the team. It was just boom, massive EB, aggro, and there's nothing I could do about it. And then there's a jailbreak at that point. And then that slope is showing you your survivability threshold. So there's a tipping point. So once that burst damage exceeds what the controls, what the debuffs are blunting, she doesn't have anything left, right? She just collapses at that point. So you kind of see that breaking point where snap, she falls off. Overwatch correlation. This is another different way of looking at the stats I didn't talk about in the Defcon 5, but here you go. This is your damage incoming versus ally defeats. So does my ability to soak damage have any bearing on my allies' survivability or not? And you can see from the R squared, no, it doesn't. So as ally defeats increase, was I taking more damage, taking less damage? Is there anything there? No, right? That outline point really kind of throws it off probably, but R squared is showing you 0.24. It's showing you that I take about 424 damage before one of my allies is defeated. But most of that was because of that mission, right? This one right here, we had 19 deaths and low incoming damage. This really threw it off. If the data points were more like this, it would have been a lot steeper, right? You would have seen the slope originally was going to be heading in this direction, which would have indicated, hey, I'm taking a lot of damage before a foe is defeated. That could have been correlation, but this one mission over here blew it all up at that point. And that's kind of where I think just deaths is not a good metric of really of anything, because it could be any silly little thing get somebody killed or just somebody's bad decision, and it's not necessarily a factor of what your character's doing support wise. So her survival doesn't consistently dictate team survival. Allies, their defeats, they weren't spiking necessarily when she was under pressure. Mission 3, there's a lot of high damage, yet there's only 4 allied defeats. But when she did get disrupted, like you saw in that last mission, or when she did get, defeated or pushed back in Mission 3, you saw that's when the team starts to fall. It's not 1-to-1, though. Mission 4 shows the fragility under pressure of the chaos. And the allied defeats were just huge, even though my damage was relatively low. But you just saw the mayhem. There were people who were running all over the place. There wasn't anything to do. We weren't able to group together, and that's why I was wishing that ATT had worked, because I think this could have solved some of this running around like a chicken with their head cut off. If we just regrouped with the ATT and then headed up, and it was too late by the time I was like, hey, we need to head up. But if we ATT'd, found a defensive position in that front room, maybe at that point we start heading up the steps, defend those stairs, that would have lowered our defeats, would have lowered our incoming damage, and I think we would have ultimately beat this mission. But it didn't, and we all ended up dying. I don't know if we would have had the 4 out of 5 or not. Plus, we still had the issue of Vale leaving the map. What does that mean? That's why I think I would have to, in the future, just kick that person and say, hey, when this fight is over, I'll invite you back. But right now, you're effectively dead and can't come back in. So support, it might be non-linear from what I'm able to tell here. Cold domination work at best when there's room to work, right? The team's positioning, the uptime, casting and that cadence, right? It's much more important than just the raw damage that Shimr is able to take. And then once you lose that rhythm, somebody gets DQ'd, there's freaking chaos. You lose suppression. It just has a huge impact on the team. It's like game over, man, game over. Pet protection. Taking a look at pet damage taken versus character. This is that ratio. I've shown this before. I was calling it by a different name in my earlier Defcon, but this is looking at the pet's contribution damage wise. Because one thing that controllers showed to me in the original set of Defcon was that their pets were a significant source of damage. So I wanted to take a look at the pet contributions a little bit more deeply. So that's what this first one is showing you. It's showing you this damage output, this pet protection, I'm calling it. And this is not just damage output, this is focusing specifically on the incoming damage. So, is there any correlation between how much damage your pet is taking and how much damage you take, or vice versa? Are they tanking for you? Are they taking one for the team? You can see that the pet's percentage of damage taken was about 60-40 overall. And when you ran the correlation between those two values, this is interesting. The pets are here, damage on the x-axis. So as pet damage was increasing, your damage is increasing, and there is a correlation between those two, but almost where I would say for sure it's 0.88. And so when you interpret this data, her pets aren't just being sacrificed though as a damage sponge, nor are they like completely immune. They're showing you there's really a mutual sharing here. They're taking about, I want to say 2 to 1, but they're taking for every one they're taking, you're taking 0.74. That's pretty much what it's saying. So you're taking about 3/4 of their damage. So you're sharing a lot of the damage load. So the damage split is 60-40, especially during the chaotic stuff. Mission 3, though, did show about a 50-50, and that's kind of given support that the cold domination isn't protecting your pets super strong, but it's like a parallel, exposure. So you're both equally protected, at least with this combo of abilities and what the pets are doing. So you're getting that rough 50-50. But when the shorter missions, where there's clearly better control, faster pace, like mission 1, mission 2, the pets were taking more, which suggests they were in the front more. They were in the front longer. Shimr was able to control and suppress so that they had more time. Because I think that was ultimately the issues, was the pet time on mission. I don't have those exact statistics, but I do know Jack was dying, right? I mean, lore pets were getting killed, which was different than the 54 times 8 the DEFCON 5 missions, where my pets were like never dying for the most part with my controllers. So I think that's the issue. If your pets are dying, they're not able to soak as much damage as they could or deal as much damage as they could. So I think that's what you're seeing here. Um, or just that, you summon them and they might get killed before you can really get them protected, or they might charge ahead and get themselves killed and, falling out of your range of protection. Then the other thing I want to look at was this guardianship concept. Did the pet damage that they took, did it have any effect on your team's defeats? Were they able to, take one for the team itself rather than just, absorbing damage? Correlation there though, 0.34. So it doesn't look like that's much, right? So the R squared, 3-4, weak correlation, moderate correlation. There is some relationship to the team's collapse, but it's inconsistent. The slope is 568. So that's for every team death, they're taking about 568 damage. But there's a variance in the data, right? Just floating data. Mission 4 of the team wipes there, and the pet damage that they took was not very high because they were getting freaking massacred. Like Jack and the pets got obliterated when that EB rush hit, and I just didn't get them up at that point after that. The recharge in the lore I don't think was back yet. So boom, they got obliterated. It was out. So you couldn't maintain their uptime, and so they couldn't even act as a damage soak. So occasionally they would soak some damage, soak some pressure, but they're not tanking for the team. At least Jack Frost wasn't, and the lore pets weren't. I think they're more debuffy, more damagey. Anyway, all right. Then another new stat that you can get specifically from Sithlin's tools, this avoidance. It records the number of hits you take. So I actually use this data as part of this analysis. I want to share that with you guys as well because it's pretty interesting. So you got the number of hits you take and the amount of time you took to take those hits is pretty interesting data. So if you take a look here at this distribution plot, the average is sitting here. So this is the number of hits you're taking per minute. So this is the rate over here. And this is for the mission. So the one mission, we're taking a ton of hits, skews your data up here. But the average is pretty low. So if you analyze what this graph is showing you, that's what I think is interesting, is that her incoming hit rate was pretty low, 7.2 hits a minute, and it's in that lower half of the bar, right? This is the 50% of the data, and then you have your what's the IQR, the interquartile range, and then you have your outer range, your lower range, and your upper range is the other 25% of the data. So her average was in the lower part of the interquartile range. So it's, relatively low. So pretty strong controls and target deflection, incoming attacks, minus recharge, that sort of stuff was allowing her not to get hit that often. Mission 3, though, was the one that had the huge spike that gives you this big range up here. Mission 3, that one went pretty long. There's just a lot of incoming fire, if you remember. I think a lot of that was actually the burn. There were burn patches, I think, in that one, if I remember. And so, you're getting hit multiple times by a burn patch. That's probably explaining this. That's why I think it's an anomaly. I don't think it's normal. So I think it's just the burn patches. But it's showing you that, she's rarely like the primary focus. So your tanks are doing a good job. You're only getting attacked, every whatever 9 seconds or something like that, 8 or 9 seconds. That's pretty good, right? Especially with all the incoming fire that's flying around. So I think I really can't say specifically it was the tanks, but probably was. Also, you got your cold domination, you got your stealth, you got your minus speed, minus recharge, your controls from ice control. So I think all that's adding up. She's not getting hit that frequently. And then we look for correlation, what I'm calling targeting correlation, the hits that I'm taking versus the damage I'm taking. As expected, very strong correlation. So the more hits, the more damage you take. Duh. But that's a good sort of control. And it's a textbook linear, target relationship. So she's not just getting spiked by a random crit here and there, and that's why she took so much damage, or just some stray, AoE unmitigated burst damage. No, she's just taking constant hits, more pain, more hurt. So the big thing here, and I think this is a key metric for survivability, is avoidance matters. And the big thing I kind of want to point out here is that any mitigation that reduces incoming hit frequency, and it doesn't have to. Now, here's the thing: most people, when they build for mitigation, right, they go, "Oh, defense, I got to cap my defense," and hey, that's great. But anything you use that lowers the amount of hits taken, slows, to hit debuffs, damage debuffs, whatever, soft controls, knockdowns, sleeps, whatever, it doesn't matter. Anything that lowers your hit frequency or lowers the damage of those hits, that's going to reduce your damage as well as something like defense or resistance, which most people are building for. So a lot of the builds I present are not specifically built in that traditional, I got to have max defense. I'm going for a blend of some defense, some resistance, and I really like to focus on these debuffs and these controls as well. And so I think it validates using this whole hit metric moving forward, uh, especially in the defensive scoring. So if you can lower your hits, you're going to take less damage. You're going to survive longer. It's really that simple. It's probably a no-brainer for most people. All right, then the other area that Sithlin's tool lets you look at is what I'm calling disruption. You can actually get a count of your controls and what type of control. So all I did is I combined all my control abilities, sleeps, knockdowns, holds, fears, whatever it was, it's all added together. So don't think I clicked hold 2,000 times. No, it's like people falling down on ice slick is a control, right? You're falling down knockdowns. So lots and lots of little ticks of disruption is what I'm calling. And so I wanted to take a look at, hey, does this level of control help with survivability of Shimr, her teammates, or whatever, right? Does it protect? And so the first stat I'm looking at here is what I'm calling disruption protection, and this is the controls. So as my number of controls increase, does my damage that I take decrease? This is what you'd expect, right? You'd expect the more control, the less damage you take. But what's odd is it's actually the opposite of that. And it's correlated, right? This is a strong correlation, zero point 0.9. It's very close to 1. So what's up with that? Why are you taking more damage when you're controlling more? That kind of doesn't make any sense. So here's the way I can try to explain this. Your control effects scale with the crisis. So she is controlling more when the fights are tougher, not less. Right? So when there's more enemies, there's more incoming. She's reacting with more controls. So longer fights, denser enemy concentrations, more dangerous encounters. It's making her have to do more slowing, more holding, more debuffing, more knocking down. She's throwing out more stuff because more stuff is coming at her. So controls are responsive. They're not preemptive, at least for her build. Ice combined with cold with ice. So I think the other thing, and that kind of goes with my point here, is that this combo, it's not burst lockdown, right? Cold and ice are suppressing, minus speed, minus recharge. You're knocking some people down. You're immobilizing stuff. You're slowing them, right? You're sleeping them a little bit. You're giving them some fear. Lather, rinse, repeat. Just piling all that stuff on. So unlike like hard controls, we're just throwing out stuns and holds, which ice doesn't have a lot of, if any. She's just spreading it out there, slowing, recharge, minus recharge, immobilizing. So the enemy's still able to attack. They're just attacking less, and that was like her purposeful build, really. And then more control also just means we're having more combat time, and more combat time means more hits, right? If the fight is tough and there's lots of enemies, there's going to be lots of combat, lots of incoming, lots of outgoing, more controls. I mean, she's a controller. That's half of her powers. So the high disruption you're seeing, like in missions 3 and 4, that's correlating with the most damage she's taken. And it's not because her controls weren't working and guys were getting away. It's because she was alive and active longer under heavy fire, actively managing enemies' behavior, right? She's still throwing the controls and the ice slicks and the sleets and the frostbites are just flying out there. Okay, so she is shouldering the pressure and dragging the enemies down into that just this attrition war of just slowness that she's trying to do. And she's not unleashing massive amounts of damage. All right, then the other metric that goes with this is disruption shielding. So, do the controls result in fewer team defeats? And at first, again, if you look at just the three missions, 1, 2, and 3, it's a pretty good correlation. It seems like, hey, more controls, the defeats are going up, and it's the same rationale as above. The more tough fights you are going to be controlling more, and it's going to have more risk to your allies and yourself. But you got that one crazy mission, mission 4, where I didn't get to do a lot of controlling because it ended after 11 minutes, but there was a ton of deaths because there was complete bedlam at this point. So this is that outlying data point. I don't think it tells the story aside from that one little chapter there. But here's what we can interpret. The disruption, the controls are helping, but they're not some silver bullet. Her control output, it's shielding the team from death in some of the missions, but not that last one for sure. So, timing mismatches perhaps. You saw what happened. The controls, I couldn't throw anything out there. So, the team's already taking massive damage or I'm dead, right? Boom, there's nothing else I can do. The other thing is just that particular combo, it's not lockdown control, right? It's attrition, suppression, right? It builds slowly over time as she layers things on the enemies. But if they bust through it and get on top of her, get on top of the teammates, it's game over. And then mission 4 is definitely skewing those results. That one data point, it's inflating that regression line, making that R squared not match. But that's also reality. So again, you can't just ignore it, right? Under huge pressure, she couldn't get the controls out and the team collapsed. Now, so that's as much her fault as the tanks not holding aggro or the blaster not killing fast enough, right? She couldn't lock down those EBs that were just steamrolling everybody. They were fairly resistant to her knockbacks at that level. And then other things that her support effectiveness doesn't necessarily equal the control quantities. The other thing you can gather from here. So, your shield up time, any healing from rebirth, who's the focus of the debuff, what the enemies that you're attacking, those are more impactful probably on the survival than just the number of controls you're throwing out there. So, you know, for your shields on people, did you rebirth on time, et cetera, et cetera. That's going to directly impact people's defeats more than, hey, I threw out another sleep. And then the colds and minus recharge, they reduce pressure, but likely it's just wasn't fast enough to prevent a death once things got crazy, right? If she had some sort of just boom lockdown on those EBs in that end room there, you could have seen a completely different swing. That's where maybe a dominator might be able to pull off the control stuff much more effectively than a controller in these things. If you can get a really big spike of dominated AoE hold with maybe a lockdown proc in there, you probably can one shot hold a bunch of EBs at once. It's not going to last super long, but it might be enough to buy the team 5 seconds before they break out of it. So that would be an interesting study to have just a massive lockdown controlling dominator build and see what that could do. All right, if you combine all the insights from these metrics together from a defensive standpoint, here's what we can see here. Targeting, right? R squared value is really high, strong correlation. Hits reliably predicting the damage taken. Again, that's kind of a no-brainer. Resilience, this is your time and damage in relationship. Moderate correlation here. Long missions, more damage, but not always true. Punishment, this is your incoming damage and personal deaths. Pretty high correlation. The damage is tracking with death, but there is still some buffering, some other factors are at play there. This Overwatch concept, the damage in versus your allies, weak predictor. Shimr's damage that she's taken is not doing jack to keep the allies alive. Disruption shielding, the controls and team deaths, again, it's the complete opposite, really. There's more controls as stuff is getting worse, not better, which kind of makes sense also from the opposite perspective. Like, you're not going to control stuff if it's not needing to be controlled and everything's under control. You're not going to throw more control on there. Pet protection, or you will throw more control because it's your damage, right? So but it's not the same concept of control, just stopping things and saving people. For a controller, it's also your damage. You know. Anyway, pet protection, pet damage in, Shimr's damage, pretty high correlation error. So when the pets are under fire, Shimr's being targeted too. So they're having a shared exposure. They're right there next to each other. So if we interpret all this, avoidance is her core survival metric. When she's targeted more, she's taking more damage. All right, cold domination doesn't offer much in the way of personal resistance. Right, you have just your Arctic fog. So your survival is about not getting hit, slowing the fight down if you can, controlling things. The mission length does increase pressure, but it's not guaranteed any breakdown. The shortest mission, right, had the highest spike in damage. Mission 4, that was your big outlier. So duration only matters when the pressure's compounding. Okay. Uh, so, just the fact that you're throwing out some trolls and whatever else, it doesn't really matter if like the pressure breaks through. And she is absorbing damage pretty well until she was until a point. So the punishment, that 0.79, she can take a lot of beating, but once she's overwhelmed, the tools that she has just doesn't let her recover fast enough. She doesn't really have much in the way of self-sustain, and the shields are just for her allies. Now, she is vital for the team, but not a linchpin for the team. So her low Overwatch value, that 0.24, now that doesn't mean that she wasn't protecting. It just means that her own damage isn't a good predictor of the team's defeats. And what matters is her ability to keep the enemies weakened and staggered. She's more debuffing than she is buffing. Now, a buffer, I would imagine, is going to be perhaps the other way around here. Or if you were to look at a tank's numbers, I'm assuming probably with a tank, the more their damage increases, the less the team's damage, I would assume, would be. I don't know if that's true, but I would be my guess. And then pets aren't absorbing stray aggro from what I can tell here. Their survivability is tracking with Shimr's own survivability, so it's pretty lockstep with each other. They're both taking damage. They're both, taking a beating. It's just that they die more easily than she does. Control doesn't prevent collapse. It reacts to it. So you're shielding, your control shielding this disruption. It's not directly reducing deaths that you can see. Instead, she's putting out more control because the fights are devolving into anarchy. And it's because, cold and ice, it's a slow reactive toolkit. It's not some preemptive strikes. I mean, the only thing you really have to kind of preempt is maybe throw ice slick around a corner. But if the mobs are immune to slows or knockbacks, then that doesn't matter. Then you maybe throw a sleep out there. I mean, really, that's about it that you can throw. And then the sleep only lasts so long. All right, now let's kind of wrap this up by getting into the final stuff, and that's the offensive categories. Lethality, foe defeats. Hey, how much damage output destruction was Shimr able to do? So foe defeats, you can see here, she had a total of 527, only 18 in that last mission as expected. That was pretty much a disaster. Before that, 169, 211, 129. Her rates 5.6, 6.8, 4.6. So she's, averaging about 5 per minute or so. So that was pretty good data. And actually, when you plot it out, even with that last mission, there is very strong correlation. So as time goes by, she does defeat more people. Again, this should be a no-brainer, unless you're just standing around doing nothing. So very strong correlation, 0.95. She's extremely consistent in contributing to the kills over time. She's got this linear offensive value. There's no drop offs. There's no inefficiencies as the fight goes longer. She falls asleep or something like that. So Shimmer's not just a debuffer and passively controlling. Her kit, this ice cold ice, this setup, it's active. It's contributing tangible, lethal output mission after mission, minute after minute. And the scaling's implying that her damage uptime, it's high. Her control abilities aren't just displacing damage; they're actually delivering the damage. So that's the one thing you got to remember with the controller is that control isn't just lower incoming damage, right? Control is also delivering your damage out. So the more you do, the more this goes up. So you're throwing more controls because you're damaging people. Threat. This is let's get this down, her damage output. So she had some pretty solid damage output if you look at the numbers. 106,000, 129,000, 143,000. Even in that last mission, where it only lasted 11 minutes, she had 50,000 damage. So she was putting out some freaking meaningful damage. And when you look at the correlation, this threat correlation, again, you see very high R squared values. So as time went on, she was doing more damage. Yes, I mean, again, that should be a no-brainer, and it's a true statement. So Shimr, sustained damage dealer. She's not front loading some massive spike and then she goes and does nothing for 5 minutes. Her damage is building up over time, more and more and more. It's a lot of those DOTs that she's got out there. just kind of stacking and trickling in. So she's not this big volatile up and down. She's just dependable, constant damage. You got the DOT stuff, you got the debuffs, the minus resistant debuffs, right? You're given lots of just ongoing value. It's not situational. And then even when the missions are collapsing, like mission 4, she still has this elite, output of damage. Now, again, she's no blaster, but minute by minute, she's constantly putting out damage. So uptime is high, and she's not wasting minutes doing nothing. Okay, that's the big news. That's one thing I like with Cold as a buffing set, right? You put your shields and then you forget about them for a few minutes. Or in my case, I kind of buff and go on the move, but I put these on and then I just focus on debuff and control doing damage. I don't have to sit there constantly babysit people. If you're dying after my shields are on you, there's really nothing I can do anyway, so sorry. Pet aggression, here's the other pet stat. So this is the output damage. So this is the stat you've seen before. And what's interesting here is this percentage of player based damage versus the pet's damage versus the character's damage here. This is the lowest I've seen it for controller, this 30/70. Most of my controllers from Defcon are much more 50/50. So Shimr's pet contribution was about a 20-point drop off from what I've seen before. I think a lot of that was just from the deaths of the pets. Pet death was pretty high. I don't think I have ability to see how many times they died. I think I can see how many times they were summoned, which gives me an idea of how many times they died, but I don't know exactly how and when they died from the stats that I've seen. But if we take that data and we plot the two numbers together, damage output of the pet, damage output of Shimr the controller, you can see that her damage is about 2 to 1. So for every 2 points of damage she's doing, her pets are doing 1, and the correlation is very strong, 0.95. The two of them are like peanut butter and jelly here. So she's not as pet reliant as the other controllers. But I think that's mostly a factor of this 801 difficulty. And it's, I think, again, consistently, she's putting out her own damage. DOTs from Ice, from Ice Mastery. She's got recharge or fast recharging AoEs like Ice Storm and Frost Breath. All those little DOT ticks from Ice Slick and Sleet, right? All that stuff just tick, tick, tick going. She's constantly putting out her own damage. Where Jack gets in there, he does a few hacks, a few punches, throws a couple snowballs, and he's dead. Right? The lore pets get out there, they do some attacking, slashing, dropping a couple bombs, and then they're dead. Right? So she's got strong uptime, consistently casting her powers out there. It's not just from, one setup and wait, like one summon of Jack and then let him do his thing, which is, I think, what you saw in the DEFCON 5 controllers. Their pets were a lot more consistently out there pounding away minute by minute, whereas hers were not. Now, maybe that's just Jack Frost. I don't know. I need to do the other DEFCON 2 Aftermath tests to figure this out. All right, then pet focus. So these are foe defeats versus pet damage. So as the pets do more damage, are more foes being defeated? Are they getting kills? Are they contributing? And from what you can see, the R squared value is saying that yes, this is a true statement. So as more foes were defeated, the pet's damage was going up. So the pets were doing about 238, 239 damage for every foe that got defeated. So they were contributing about that much. So near perfect correlation here. Enemies dying, pets are delivering a damage. The slope, every one, you're doing about 239 damage. They're helping secure the kills. They're not, making all the kills, and they're not just tagging along doing nothing. So they're there. If they're alive, they're active, they're contributing. When they're dead, they're not. And I think it's also just part of her overall kit. Without them, she would have had a 30%, damage decrease, which would not have been a healthy thing for the team. All right, then we're going to take a look at the efficiency. So this is one of the last stats I have here, but this is the one where you take a look at the ratio between how much outgoing damage Shimr is producing versus how much damage she's taking. So I used to call this one liability, but this is now efficiency. And so if you take a look at the ratios, 19 to 1, 14 to 1, 7 to 1, 8 to 1. So the first couple missions, she's very efficient in the teens. So for every point of damage she's taken, she's delivering 19 or 14. But here, we drop off 7 and 8. As things get tougher, the enemies are getting tougher. So maybe she's doing less damage. She's also taking more damage. So it's changing the ratio. And on average, about a 12 to 1 ratio. So she's still on the plus side. She's still dealing 12 times more damage than she's taking. Now, the Sithlin's tool also allows us to look at this with pets. What's their efficiency looking like? So Shimr's at a 12 to 1. These pets are much lower. They're only at a 3 to 1. So this is where, again, we're seeing a drop off in pet performance here with Shimr in these 801 tests. I think, if this was the regular stuff that I've been running before, this would be much closer to the 12 to 1 number here because the pets were just doing a lot more damage. But that is it. I mean, they're not contributing nearly as much as they used to. And they're still doing a decent chunk, right? 36,000, 47,000, 39,000. Even in that last mission where they died pretty quick and the mission was over, they still got out 10,000 damage. So you don't want to just not have pets. That's going to hurt your output. And then here's the two side by side. Here's your Shimmers up here in orange. And then here is Jack and Company pets down here in blue. And their correlations are pretty high, 0.88, 0.88. So these graphs are representative of what you're seeing here. So as damage incoming, damage outgoing, it's pretty. I mean, this is like almost, I don't say a 1 to whatever that ratio, 12 to 1, right? It's 12 this way for every 1 this way. So that much steeper than the slope here, which was like 3 or 4 to 1. Was it 4 to 1 or 3 to 1? That number again, 3.2. So about 3 to 1 for the pets. So it's a shallower slope is what you're seeing. So if this gets steeper, you're contributing more, and that's what you're looking for. So one easy way to see, hey, is another controller better? You could just look for this. Are they cranking out more damage than taking in? That's a good sign of, more, I guess, more of an offensive sign, I guess. But anyway, so orange line, look at Shimr. Strong correlation between the damage taken, damage dealt. She's consistently converting her exposure to threat to offense. And her steep slope, just showing she's got high personal value scales under pressure. She's delivering 12 times more damage than she's taken. The pets, their output's not scaling nearly as well as with the incoming. They're still performing while they're safe, but once they get exposed, it's game over. They're out. And their efficiency drops obviously under pressure in mission 4. I mean, their rate was 1.3. So I mean, they're pretty much taking as much damage as they're putting out. They were just getting slaughtered in that last mission. Last stat I want to look at is now the control effects on offense. So disruption amplification. So as controls increase, does Shimr's damage output increase? And as you'd imagine, yeah, because her controls are her damage, right? Cold domination itself is not a damagey set. I mean, yeah, you got sleet and you got some potential damage proccing with infrigidate, but most of her damage is right here from her control set, as well as Ice Mastery, which has some control in it from the knockdowns with Ice Storm. So you've got a lot of control leading to a lot of damage. And so her disruption values, it just shows that it's not a separable thing here. Frozen targets, we're taking the DOTs from the ice powers. Slow, weak enemies, they're lasting longer, so they're just kind of standing there unable to move. And this is giving the pets time to beat on them and grind them down. And so unlike some bursty, damages, she's thriving in this attrition combat situation. And pairing up the ice and the cold together, it keeps the control pressure high. I guess is sort of maybe the downside of it, because you're not just slaughtering things wholesale. So you're keeping her pressure up high. They're lingering longer. You're just slowly whittling them down with the debuffs. If you watch some of the video where I'm isolated by myself a couple times, maybe there's a run or whatever, you see it's like takes me a while to finally kill him while the team is moving on. And you'll hear me say a few times, I need my blaster over here to kill this thing. But it does give more time for those damages to take hold, and at the same time as they're lingering, they're unable to recover enough to do much damage to her once they get one or two shots off. And then mission 4 though is kind of the opposite. One mission, there was low control out there, low threat output, right? She's It's not that she wasn't trying, but she just couldn't do anything. She got killed, and then it was just a stampede at that point. There's no room to do anything, breathe, get momentum back. We couldn't get our footing under our ground, under our feet under our ground, whatever, on the ground anywhere. Feet under us. And then the yield, this is the effect it controls on foe defeats, so lethality. This is, again, pretty decent correlation. As controls go up, the number of foes you defeat goes up. Again, it's kind of no brainer because you're doing controls, you're dealing damage with them, you're going to defeat enemies. So controls are fueling her kills. It's not exclusive. It's pretty close though. Again, I'm looking for about a 0.9. I didn't get there yet. But it shows that, controlling means more enemies are dying, but there's other stuff being factored in there. You got non-control attacks that are also doing damage. Plus, you got your allies throwing damage. You got enemies resisting different damage types, or just the pace of the mission, the layout of the map. All that stuff is also going to determine if an enemy gets killed or not. And her best fights weren't necessarily the bloodiest either. So mission 3, for instance, she had the highest control total, 28, but her kills weren't great. Mission 1, much fewer controls by about 1,000, but she had more kills. Again, weaker enemies though, so this mission was harder, this was weaker. So hey, what's going on here? The time that it took to kill, who's on the team, where are they on the team, where's the aggro, is the blaster kill stealing you? All that stuff is going to contribute to who ultimately gets the final, kill shot on whatever. But at the end of the day, what you're seeing here is control. It's a force multiplier, but it's not necessarily a finisher. So she's creating, I think, a lot of opportunities, and I'm sure her teammates were capitalizing on the slowed enemies, the debuff resistance enemies, etc. And so whenever, I would love to see how the damage dealer did. So, you got a strong damaging team, they're going to capitalize on those controls because stuff is locked down. That's why I was a lot of times my criticisms were like, hey, tanks, bring the guys into one area because then I can leverage my controls and my debuffs. That's going to boost our team's lethality. So I think that is something that when you see her bursts of damage or her allies' bursts of damage, it's in scenarios like that. Combined overall offensive insight, when you look at it all together, lethality, this is the time for foe defeats. The R squared correlation is high. She's getting kills through uptime. The longer the missions, more kills. It's not just little pockets of burst damage here and there. Same thing with threat. The amount of time, the damage output, her more time, more damage. It's building and building and building. Pet contribution, the pet versus personal damage output. The pets are scaling directly with Shimr. They're part of her offense. Pet aggression, the pets versus the foe defeats. The pets are part of the team kills. I mean, they're not just padding it, they're helping get their own kills on top of everybody else. Then you got the efficiency metric of the character. And the pet efficiencies are the same thing, 0.88. Shimr, she's got strong solo efficiency, even if she's under fire. The pets, they're contributing meaningfully, not as efficient as Shimr was, of course, but meaningfully. Disruption synergy, this is the controls of the damage output. High correlation again. Disruption is her damage. Crowd controls, DOTs, they're all combined, making this just linear threat. And then the focus, the disruption focus, her controls are boosting the kill counts, not guaranteeing them, but they're definitely boosting them, especially if you pair them up with some DPS from your teammates. So, interpretation, all this nonsense. Shimr is scaling with time, not tempo. Her lethality, her threat, She's like clockwork, just clicking away DOTs of damage. Longer missions, deadlier she becomes. She's not a spike killer. She accumulates control, attrits the enemy, and just keeps pumping out output until the foes are collapsing. Disruption is her damage loop, so nearly perfect correlation. Her control is damage. Her slows, the freezing, the debuffing, the ticking damage, locking down the foes. Her crowd control is turning just this lethal momentum machine. And this gets the seamless offense defense blend, which is, I think, what Ice Control and Cold Domination are really all about. They're kind of layering suppression of enemy at the same time as damaging them. Not all control and support sets can do that. And the pets, they're enabling, but they're not just passengers. You're carrying them. They're contributing 30% of damage to her. They're scaling with her damage, so the more she's doing, the more they're doing. They're scaling with the kills, right? The more kills, the more they're killing. They're helping secure stuff, keeps Shimr moving, and she's able to fight well under fire. Looking at those efficiency numbers, they're strong when she's challenged, especially when you compare it to her pet. So she is much more momentum than they are. But when you have those really chaotic fights like Mission 3, output's pretty high, but the pet efficiency, kind of gets jacked up. And so you got this balance between she's performing best when she's under pressure, but there is that breaking threshold that boom, too much pressure is too much, and down she goes. All right, guys, I'm going to end it there. I mean, this is a 2 hour marathon discussion of Shimr's Cold Domination, Ice Control, Ice Mastery controller build in these 801 trials against some of the toughest, team action that I've personally faced. Good times, I think, and appreciate the help from the best of the worst crew that was joining me through this slog of battle where all of us had a little PTSD at the end of this. So anyway, appreciate all of you guys for tuning in as well. Hopefully you got some good information here about these tests, about this build and what she can do. Need you to stay tuned for the next vid. I'm going to get into Jir Falcon's results because he's also run these tests at this point. So I'm going to post his team action and then do a similar in-depth analysis of his numbers. And we'll have that side-by-side comparison of these two. So we can answer the question of who won this fight? Who won the first round of the Defcon 2 Aftermath Challenge? Is it Shimr, the controller, or is it Jir Falcon, the defender? You have to stay tuned to find out. In the meantime, have a good one. Peace out.